From the haunted backroads of America, this is your Shadow Nation.
Hey, welcome back to studio, everybody, and our good friends in the cosmos. I'll be your host for the next hour plus, Ghostman Shaun, the best in the Midwest, broadcasting from the crossroads of America. This is your place for the strange, the Shadow Nation, baby. Ooh, you hit the spot. Ooh, you hit the spot right on it. What a busy day. What a great guest we have tonight, guys. I am thrilled. I am seriously thrilled. Epic actor from Epic Films, and he's going to blow your socks off. But before we get to that, what an epic day. Sorry, guys, I got this taste on my tongue. You know those, what are they, Bath and Body Work plug-ins, huh? I know what you're saying. Ghostman, you don't seem like a fragrant, Bath and Body Works fragrant diffuser type guy. Well, I am. I love good smells and candles. Chicks dig it, man. But I took one of those out. You know, you screw them in, they heat up, and the scent comes out or whatever. Real pleasant, right? Until you get it in your mouth. I unscrewed it. The other one was empty, and I just barely bit the side to get the plastic off. I know, you're not supposed to use your teeth, but oh my God, that stuff went on my tongue. I can't get it off right here in studio. I'm about ready to lick the microphone. I taste like... or I'm tasting, what is it, summer rosebud or something? Maybe it's long farts on the beach. I don't know. You know how they always come up with those corny names for the room fragrance things. But Bed Bath & Beyond, or is it Bath & Body Works? Yeah, those things are expensive, man. Maybe they should start sponsoring us. I love Bed Bath & Beyond or Bed Bath & Body or whatever the hell it is. But, yeah, give me a discount on that stuff because I love it. I love it. The candles are like $27 each. I burn a candle in about 3 days. So, yeah, I'm not thinking I'm going to pay that much. But I always use the coupons. You got to cut them out. Cut the coupons out. Be a coupon saver. That's what I am. Anyway, I hope everybody out there across our great land had a beautiful 4th of July. Of course, our listeners here in America, because yesterday was the 4th of July. Fireworks going off. It was banging. It was amazing. Everybody loved it. The Star Spangled Banner playing. The president was on TV. He did that salute to America. You had tanks. You had the Blue Angels, the planes flying overhead. It was amazing. America, you gotta love it. Rock, flag, and eagle. Yeah. Oh, that was great. Remember that? It was from, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Was he going to kick some butt, going to drive a big truck? Rock, flag, and eagle. Yeah. I always want to do that. On my own show, I've done it. I'm so happy. So happy. But anyway, y'all, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and slip into tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is a Canadian actor best known for his epic roles in such films as Saving Private Ryan, The Green Mile, Flags of Our Fathers, True Grit, and of course for his new role coming up in what's sure to be the summer of 2019 blockbuster, baby, Crawl. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to studio Mr. Barry Pepper.
I'm on an island, so, it's amazing that we're even connected.
Yeah, but you're like a mountain man. Don't you live on an island or something?
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, it's a pretty good sized island. It's probably about the size of Holland. It's probably the biggest. I think it is the biggest island on the west coast of the Americas. So it's a big one. It's about 480 kilometers long and about 100 kilometers wide. So it's a good sized island.
Jesus Christ. I just got home from work, rushed to the studio to interview my idol, and I'm sitting here dripped in sweat, and you're in an island. What's going on here? Hey, Barry, tell me what my life goals should be. That's what I need, man.
Yeah, I just picked up a fishing license to go fishing, man. Now's the time for the big spring salmon or king salmon, like you might call them, up here on the Pacific Northwest. It's an epic fishing right now.
That's
just gorgeous.
That's what I heard you say before the interview. We were talking about, you said you're getting ready to go fishing. I was thinking here with my kids of joining this conservation club because I live here in Indiana. It's Midwest in the middle.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and there's a lot of little lakes, but nothing big like Canada or anything, or up in Minnesota. But, I'm thinking about joining this club. They got these private lakes, and they stock it with trout and everything. Because I'm a huge fisherman, too, man. I love it. So
you should. I'm a diehard fly fisherman, and so I think you absolutely should. And introduce it to your kids, and whether you're spin casting or fly fishing, it's just the best. My favorite is river fishing. I love river fly fishing.
Yeah.
It's my happy place. But yeah, lake fly fishing or spin casting for trout or bass is just wonderful. Such a great thing to share with your kids.
For a Zebco reel man, you're talking like a mystery to me, the river fishing, man. Fly fishing, it's a complete mystery.
Well, I always pack my smuggler fly rod in my luggage when I'm on a project, and so wherever we are, I can hit the rivers or lakes, and one of the best was the Lone Ranger, because Gore Verbinski, he's a fly fishing nut like I am, and right. So on our days off or in the evening, we'd go and hit the rivers, and we were all over. We were in about 5 different states on that project, so we'd be in Colorado or Utah, or,
oh man,
fishing the Rio Grande, like some of the most epic fly fishing in the world, and so it's such a great sport because you can really just kind of do it anywhere.
So you're actually on the set of The Lone Ranger. You have your scenes, you know what you got to do, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to take a break. you guys just went fishing.
Yeah, usually after work or maybe on our weekend, right. Gore and I'd hit the rivers, and it's just such a peaceful way to decompress after a long week at work, because we'd put in some pretty long hours.
Well, let me just say,
it's nice to just go and find some peace and quiet.
Let me just say, Barry, we're about the same age, brother, and I've followed your career for so long. You're one of my favorite actors. Just knowing that you love fishing just as much as I do is even better now.
Right on. But fly fishing is another animal altogether, because especially for the kids, they get to learn entomology. They get to look at what's happening on the surface of the lake or river and see what hatch is happening, and then go maybe tie that pattern or go pick up a fly in a fly shop somewhere. But it's really fun when you start to tie your own flies, and then you catch a fish on that fly that you just tied. Absolutely. Because you knew the exact hatch and exactly what that bug was, and that's exciting, especially for young people. It's it's a good thing for them to learn.
Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Barry Pepper's in studio with us here. So welcome to the show, Barry.
Yeah. Hey man, I gotta say, Shaun, that was a great interview with William Sanderson. Oh. Man, I grew up with the Newhart and Dukes of Hazzard and Blade Runner and Coal Miner's Daughter, and so I thoroughly enjoyed that interview.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was great. Really good job. I never had the pleasure of working with him, but we've crossed paths on a few projects like Return to Lonesome Dove, and I've worked with Tommy Lee Jones and Stephen King and whatnot. But man, I really enjoyed that. Great job.
Man, I appreciate it, brother. And you know what? In having you on tonight, this is amazing, because moments ago when I got in studio, I seen in the mail I have a book. Yes, I'm that guy. The rough and tumble life of a character actor, of course, by none other than William Sanderson. And he sent me a little thank you note, man. So thanks. That made my day, man.
Yeah, I look forward to getting that book because, boy, he's got some stories, doesn't he?
Oh.
And, just some of the stuff made me laugh so hard, like working with Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah. What was it like to work with TLJ? He says, which one?
Yeah, I know.
Tommy Lee's a wild man.
And then he was in jail. Yeah, he's a crazy guy. And in Deadwood, he's bringing it home. But talking about you, brother, you've done so much.
Well, interestingly enough, like sort of a 6 degrees of separation, I studied his Tennessee vocal rhythms for Private Jackson in Saving Private Ryan.
Wow.
And I ended up actually using this rural old recording of this fellow talking about his mama's cornbread recipe, and I had that on my Walkman, for the 3 months of filming. But I remember studying his vocal patterning early on. So I just thought that was really cool to hear you interview him.
That is epic, man. Not a lot do the guests go on and they actually listen to the whole interview. You know, they check me out, make sure I'm legitimate, but they don't listen to the whole interview. That's really cool. I appreciate that. But you know what? Talking about you growing up, man, you're a Canadian guy. You grew up, and when I was finding this, I didn't know this about you. But really, I mean, your father was a lumberjack. You grew up in the wilderness. You guys sailed the islands in a homemade boat. Tell us some about that, man. How did you start out? Your family used to do skits in the front room. How did it all start for you, man?
Well, he was a lumberjack here in the Pacific Northwest, so falling trees for a living and running up and down the side hills and falling timber. And in the evenings, him and my mom, they built a big barn in the backyard, and they started building this 50-foot fiberglass sailboat. And it took them about 5 years, evenings and weekends, and they launched it in about 1975, and that was here on Vancouver Island, where my daughter's actually sixth generation here, so I have a lot of deep history here, and so and then we moved aboard and we sailed the Canadian coast and down to the U.S. and Mexico, and then off to the South Pacific, and we lived on board for 5 or 6 years, and Tahiti, Tonga, Fiji, Rarotonga, New Zealand, Jesus. Hawaii, the Tuamotus, all through the South Pacific.
Pirates,
and
man.
Yeah, that was my youth.
Well, how did you get to school? How did you start the acting process?
Well, we did homeschool. My folks were our teachers, and so we do our studies and then dive overboard and go spearfishing or whatever. And so it was a pretty neat way to grow up. But we didn't have television, for, I guess, probably the first 10 years of my life. So probably not till 1980 did we got our first old black and white hand-me-down television and started watching reruns of stuff that we'd missed. I think we just had a lot more time with imagination games and, That's where
I went wrong, Bear, because I went reality TV. I knew I knew the Atari would be the death of my career, I freaking knew it, man. No, but, I was doing all my homework, trying to get everything into the time we have together. And, of course, I'm going to hit on your new project that's going to be a summer blockbuster, of course. But, man, you're such a diverse actor. And I've listened to so much of what you said in different interviews and what you've written about. And one of the things I found funny is not all the actors out there go as deep into a character as you do, with the research, the homework you do yourself. I was listening to an interview. One of my favorite movies that you did was The True Grit. Worked with Jeff Bridges, Matt Damon, Josh Brolin, and of course the Coen brothers did that, and you nailed it as Lucky Ned. I mean, just amazing. And when I listened to the interview you did, and you talked about how you got in character for that, how the prosthetic helped you, can you break that down for our listeners? Because I thought it was amazing how you got ready to play such an iconic role like that.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's always been kind of my springboard in. It's kind of like jumping out of an airplane. You just don't know what you're going to experience once you land on set, and who, all the different, the hundreds of crew members and cast that you're going to work with, and how everything's going to click. So for me, that's kind of the armor that I put on, all of those layers. I just want to be absolutely embedded in the character, and so there was a great source material for that project. The book is excellent, and so in reading the book and researching for the character, I had something that never made it into the film that was really interesting to me was that Rooster Cogburn and Lucky Ned Pepper had this dust up where prior to where the film begins, where Rooster had shot Ned in the mouth. He'd shot him in the jaw, and so that really helped sort of define the character. And then, of course, there's certain descriptives in the book about what he's wearing, and certain things that he says. In the book, in terms of just very sparse dialogue, but you just pluck certain things that really inform the character, and you can just start building from there.
Barry, did that hit you on set? I mean, when you're standing there and you're screaming at Rooster, which, of course, Jeff Bridges, does it hit you, oh, my God, I'm in this iconic movie that I'm doing from way back when. Now it's my turn. You know what I mean?
Well,
that's huge.
Yeah,
John
and
Wayne.
I'm such a huge fan of Robert Duvall. I felt, I had to call him beforehand to kind of get his blessing because it was, that was a challenging one for me, even though I knew that the film deserved a remake. I thought the book was so different than the John Wayne film, the original, and that's really why the Coens wanted to remake it.
Right.
They had been, reading it as a bedtime story to their kids, and thought, man, this doesn't really resemble the John Wayne film, and this is fabulous. Let's make a film with it, and so yeah, that for me that was the biggest thing. I didn't want to sort of tread on hallowed ground where Bob Duvall, one of my idols, had been, and so yeah, that was nice to get his blessing.
If you just could have called me though, Barry, being one of my favorite actors, listen, you just should have swerved to the right because Rooster was coming right for you. It was a bad plan, brother. You know what I mean? You took him.
Yeah, it was so much fun working with all those guys. But the Coens are just such incredible, brilliant filmmakers. I thoroughly enjoyed every day on that set.
I love what you talked about, the creative process. Not only, guys, did Barry get in the mindset and get ready to play the role in True Grit, but you actually had hands-on with costume design, picking out stuff, the prosthetic. When you started talking about using those prosthetics, how does that help an actor get into the role when you get to use a prosthetic? Like with Lucky Ned, you had the lip thing.
Yeah, well, for me, that was so important. He had been, even though the audience would never see that part of his history between him and Rooster, the fact that he'd been shot in the jaw and it had messed up all his teeth and it had kind of given him this speech impediment, I thought that was brilliant. I really wanted to work with it. And it was something I had to sort of sell to them, but, once we got into it, it was fantastic just because it really informed that sound and the drawl and just the way he held his jaw kind of forward. It just created the base for the character. And there was something else in the book too that was interesting. He had sheepskin chaps,
right?
And I'd never seen that in a film since I think Buster Keaton.
Yeah, the woolly chaps, yeah.
Yeah, a character wearing sheepskin chaps. It was really unique, and so yeah, we built those from scratch with the costume designer Mary Zofers, and yeah, it was fantastic, and going through the wardrobe trailer with Jeff, that was the coolest because he's picking out his duster and his hat and trying to figure out what works for him and what feels right, and just sort of finding the skin of the character together, and I'm looking through hats and vests and this and that, and it's really such an important part of the character development for me. And once you have that skin, all of a sudden it just comes to life for me anyway.
Did you go home, like, I know I'm stuck on True Grit, but did you go home and draw on yourself in the mirror? Were you shooting pop guns at the kids, man?
No, I grew up with firearms, hunting and fishing, and that was pretty commonplace around here, and so deer hunting with my dad, and so I was really very comfortable with firearms. So that was, and then horses too, that it was comfortable on a horse. So that all helps.
Well, I just didn't know.
When you get on set, you don't have to do too much cowboy camp.
Yeah, well, I didn't know because I didn't grow up around six shooters. Those were different, in the gunfights in the West. So, but
and they were black, black powder back then. So.
Absolutely. And another thing you said that was so cool in one of your past interviews from years ago was the you talked about the handle on the gun, how they made that for you because you said these guys back then lived and died by the gun. You were right.
That's right. Yeah, I wanted a shamrock, embedded in the handle, so they put that on there for me. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that project. Thanks for bringing up the good memories.
Dude, are you kidding me? You can see, when you're into a role, you can see it. You're one of those rare actors. I mean, all actors are a lot of great actors out there, but you in your face, brother, you can see the soul bubble out in the role you play, like in Saving Private Ryan. It's the greatest World War II movie that's ever been made.
Well, to remove myself from it, just what Stephen accomplished with that film is extraordinary. And when you're there and you're doing it, you're so embedded in the process that you're not really kind of taking the time to look around you and appreciate the extraordinary sets that they built and just the massive flotilla of that Normandy invasion and just what he put together was just absolutely extraordinary. But it's usually, in hindsight, you look back in amazement. Tom Hanks was a fantastic leader in that sense, and also our military coordinator, Captain Dale Dye, who ran us through our boot camp. He took us out into the bush, and we spent a week in the woods, with our authentic World War II uniforms, and we slept in, the authentic canvas pop tents and 8 box rations, and everything was cooked over the open fire. We tried to emulate it as authentically as we could as to how the guys would have been living back then, and one of the things that was sort of our mantra, our dogma through the film was just to not leave set, not to break character, just to sit, after the scene was over, you would just take your helmet off and sit on it and just drink from your canteen. Maybe you had some rations in your pocket, but really to not sort of discuss the outside world, if you'd just seen a film or what was happening, in the modern world, but really just kind of stay locked into that World War II time capsule, and that really helped. And that's lock it down.
Yeah, that movie, Jesus, man, and you brought it home. But like you just hit on, you're with Tom Hanks, Tom Sizemore, Vin Diesel, so many other great actors. But you went to the boot camp for 10 days to prepare for this role, man. And had you played a sniper before at all in any movie?
No, that was really my first big film experience. I'd worked with Dean Semler. Was on a film called Firestorm. He had won the Oscar for Dances with Wolves as a cinematographer, and this was his first, directorial debut, and so that was really my very first film experience. And then Ryan Reynolds and I packed up our cars and we drove from Vancouver to LA and rented a house, and it was really kind of our first, foray into the film industry in Los Angeles, and he booked a pilot, and I ended up, getting Saving Private Ryan, and off I went. So Saving Private Ryan was just an absolute mind blower for me as a young actor, because it really was kind of my first, setting foot on the first big film set of my career. So yeah, it was big and overwhelming, and it was. So I think that's what was also such a. It allowed you to focus, so intensely. It was so big and so overwhelming that it was just like you just zeroed in, just 100% focus on your task, the task at hand, and yeah. So it's funny, like I say, in hindsight, I look back and go, wow, that was an amazing experience. But at the time, just like you said, you're just so focused. You're so zeroed in on what your job is.
Right. That's what, first off, I got to sketch that out now for my book I'm going to write, The Amazing People I've Interviewed, because I picture you and Deadpool in a pullback top convertible going to Hollywood from Canada, okay? It's a Lucky Ned and Deadpool, man.
I don't know if I rambled on there. I don't know if I answered your question, but...
No, you got it. I think we got it, but it was fun if we got there. So. No, man, but you did the 10-day boot camp. That movie, you can't even touch it. I mean... Saving Private Ryan was amazing.
No, but that's exactly what I was driving at, was that we were so green, we were so new to the film industry that we really needed that immersive boot camp experience to really, I've never been in a tank before. I'd never shot a sniper rifle. I'd never, field stripped a Colt 45. I'd never worn that uniform. I hadn't seen or done any of those things, and for many of us, it was just an absolute, first time experience in that respect. We'd never been in a Higgins boat, landing craft, so there was a lot to learn. And so 10 days was a crash course. And then pretty much right after the boot camp, we were flown to Ireland to do the beach invasion sequence with like zero rest. he just basically took us from the boot camp and threw us on the beach. And Stephen wanted it that way. He'd calculated it that way on purpose to have us just bearded and hungry and pissed off and tired.
I was going to say, you got to tell me some behind-the-scenes stuff real quick that won't end anybody's career. But come on. I mean, I did boot camp. So you guys are stuck in this 10-day boot camp. You're going through hell. Then all of a sudden you got to go to work. Was there ever a blow-up? Was there, hey, listen, man, who are you talking to?
Well, there was, tempers were high because, the tension was building because we weren't allowed to have our scripts. We weren't allowed to develop our characters in terms of, our individual characters in terms of what, our dialogue, our scenes would be.
Yeah.
But that was purposeful on Stephen's part. He wanted to strip all of that away and just kind of like allow us that immersive time to just become those characters so that we would know them as good or better than any writer could possibly know our characters, so that whatever came out of our mouths would be authentic. But at the time, it was so disconcerting for us as actors because we were just nervous that we were going to screw up. We knew that we were being flown to Ireland shortly, and we would have to, do this big invasion sequence. And there was dialogue. There was a lot of intricate scenes, stunts. And I think that really threw us for a loop to the point where people were like, the heck with this boot camp, man, let's get out of here. We want our scripts. We want to be back at the hotel and comforts. And
yeah, and you being the younger guy really coming in going, oh, man, you said you were green. I can't imagine, because you're nervous, man. They could drop you.
I honestly, I loved every minute of that boot camp and never wanted to leave. I think it was the trigger that I needed to propel me into the character. But yeah, I think for guys that grew up in the city, it was pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, me and you would have survived. I don't know if I would.
Yeah, oh yeah, you would have loved it, brother.
I would have.
It was an incredible experience. It was miserable and muddy and rainy and crappy, having to cook your coffee in your canteen over the open fire and eat these crappy old box rations and whatever, but it was an amazing experience, and that was one thing that Tom reminded us all of when people were getting pretty miserable, and was just, you're going to look back on this in 20 years and just recognize it as one of the greatest experiences of your life, and he was right.
Okay, Barry, this is something here's my inside the actor studio moment, okay? Cue music. Yeah. Here we go. I even wrote it out. You have said that you really identify with characters that are flawed. Ordinary people who, they've shattered, they've had to rebuild and overcome the odds. And I want to ask you, why do you think you identify with that? And when did you get to the point in your career where you knew you identified with that?
I guess you grow up in a rural setting and just regular, blue-collar folks, working-class people.
Yeah.
Like my people are, farmers and fishermen and lumbermen and the kind of people that, miners, people that built America, people that built Canada, and they are flawed people. They work so hard. They don't have all the easy breaks, and
that's right.
Sometimes people are driven to drink and they have tough lives, and they have to sometimes rebuild and repair, and they go through difficult times where they lose it all. They have to gamble everything. Maybe their farm, dries up, and so I think it's easier for me to identify with people like that are hardworking, blue-collar folks that are not. I just don't have any interest in watching a perfect hero. I think that Crawl is probably the closest film I've done to maybe a superhero film. The cape and the tights don't interest me, and
right.
This would probably be the most relatable characters that I'm drawn to are characters like this. They're stuck in a Category 5 hurricane trying to survive.
Absolutely.
And you can argue that the Gators they bring the fun and the entertainment and the thrills, but it's really a film that's grounded in a pretty realistic drama about a family trying to survive.
And see, you segue perfect into that, brother, and that's why you're the professional. He's got Crawl. Crawl, guys, it's coming out, and it's going to be out on the 12th, July 12th. It's going to be a blockbuster summer premiere show. I can't wait to be there. Do you remember when we were kids, brother? Well, you might not. I don't know. But do you remember that show, Alligator? Where the kid,
no, I don't.
There was a kid, and he scared the crap out of me. There was a kid flushed his... Because they used to give out, here in the United States at least, you could go into the pet store and buy a baby alligator.
Oh, really?
Yes, and they had a problem. I know it was in the New York Times back in the 80s or middle 70s, and the kids were dumping them down the toilet and flushing them. And they said...
I feel like people buying pythons and stuff.
That's it, man. And apparently the sewers were full of these, albino alligators roaming around. Of course, it was all BS probably, but I don't know. Yeah. But now you're in this movie, Crawl. Tell us about it. What's going on? What's your character about?
Yeah, this is going to be a popcorn chomping summer thriller.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of experience in the thriller horror genre. It's just something I've never done, and they're not the traditional horror is just not a film genre that I watch. I'm not interested in seeing bikini-clad teenagers at the lake getting stabbed by some psychopath. That's just not my not my jam, and so I've just never been drawn to those kind of scripts. But this one, like I say, when I spoke to Alex Aja about it, we discussed the script. What really sold me was that he wanted to build a relationship between father and daughter that could hold its own without the hurricanes and the gators, and that's really what sold me on it. I could relate to these people and. Yeah, but it was incredible when I got there. It was a punishing film to do. It was one of probably the most physically challenging films I've been a part of. So I look back on it as the best of times and the worst of times, really, because each day was just an eye-opener of innovation and challenge. These massive sets, like football field-size water stages with, entire town built in them to submerge in chest-deep water and floating cars and just I think we had 5 million liters of water in our one main stage. We had big external, second unit shots, stuff, shot in Florida and whatnot, but the contained sets were just absolutely incredible. So, you walk in there and it just takes your breath away. Like, how are we going to do this? Are these houses and these gas stations in towns that we built, are they going to sustain the punishment that this water and wind and hurricane weather is going to throw at them? And because it hadn't really been done before in that particular setting, with that much water. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, we were submerged for at least 2 months. And it was sort of it's probably about a 10-week, felt like a 10-week fight camp. It was brutal. Just swampy water.
Did they have
and lots of stunts, but really fun, Yeah. I look back on it fondly because it was a lot of fun, and I don't usually get to have that kind of fun on a film set. I'm usually doing pretty serious drama.
Okay, you got to tell me this, Bear. How did you react to what I had imagined CGI alligators chasing you? How do they have that? Is it a man in a green suit? What is it?
Yeah, well, I've worked with a few monsters in this film business before.
Right, yeah, sure.
So these gators who are walking the park.
Right.
No, we had lots of practical devices and stuntmen in gator suits, full scale, lifelike gators, like mechanical gators, photorealistic replica gators. But yeah, it's plenty of imagination. You have to just kind of go to that place where you've, I don't know, been bit by a dog or kicked by a horse or whatever you use to draw on to imagine that pain and suffering that is about to be inflicted on you, right. or fear. But there was so many styles of devices used for the gators that it wasn't all just CG in camera.
Right. So we went old school because Hollywood's going back to the practical effects, like when Star Wars came out, and now they're redoing the Jaws, not the movie. Please, God, don't let them redo Jaws. But when they did the practical effect, a couple guys are fixing up the old Jaws. So did they have some alligators on, like prop heads and stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah, they had some alligators on prop heads and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, they have to have all that for proximity, so you know distances, and
sure.
But it's obviously just not practical to be, have my arm down the throat of a gator.
Come on, man.
So
aren't you dedicated?
There's a lot of really cool pieces that were built. You'd be amazed. I'm actually really looking forward to that. When we can start,
right.
sharing some of the behind the scenes of the making of this, because it was. Right. It's funny, you start off in this business excited by the prospect of stepping on one of these big film sets, and I expressed that how in the wonderment that I felt on Saving Private Ryan. But this was sort of similar, 20 some odd years later, and I just was in total wonder being there. And again, I'm not trying to say this is any sort of like big groundbreaking
right.
Cinema. It just was, for me, a really fun, cool experience to be a part of such an innovative process, because it's really challenging trying to figure out how to make these things happen and come to life and not go sideways on you.
I don't even know how you did it, man. Like I said, I did a reality TV show, and they had me doing voiceovers after we filmed. That's always fun when they have bad.
That's really challenging too, isn't it?
Well, I remember they were all laughing at me. I was behind the glass, and they said, "Okay, you're in the water. This is where the thing grabs your foot or whatever." And they go, "You need to scream." So I screamed, and I thought, "Man, I really did it. I did good." And they said, "Okay, dude, even Al Pacino would say, pull it back."
Oh, I love it. That's great.
That was my welcome.
You're like, I can't remember what I did a year ago. All right, give me a break.
I couldn't, man. I couldn't. But listen, man, I love you to death. What's going on next for Barry Pepper, and where can our fans follow you, listen to you, and see you coming up?
Find me at Barry V. Pepper on Instagram, or Barry Pepper on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm kind of just enjoying life. I'm developing a television series, and I just sold a script to a director that I helped develop and co-write. And so, the production side of things is really exciting for me. I've been kind of dabbling in that for, the last 5 to 10 years seriously. And that's sort of a slow ball to push up the hill, but it's starting to pay dividends. So I'm really enjoying that. It's almost like a retirement plan in a way.
That's what I was just ready to say. Early retirement, Barry Pepper.
Yeah. I don't know how long I want to do this, but no, I'm really enjoying that side of it. I really like developing scripts with writers and working with producers, and I've had the pleasure of producing a couple films, like the Dale Earnhardt story and Snow Walker, and that was really enjoyable.
Snow Walker was amazing.
So I just sort of been continuing on that path, and haven't found my next film yet, but we'll see. We'll see what the new year brings.
Well, I tell you, man, I love you. I support everything you do. Anytime you want to come back on, please think of the Shadow Nation and come back on here, okay?
Right on. My pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me, Sean. Cool, man. I really enjoyed that. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, what else do you want? From Saving Private Ryan, The Green Mile, True Grit, and so much more. And, of course, his new film due out July 12th, which is going to be a summer blockbuster, Crawl.
Hey, this is Barry Pepper from the new summer movie Crawl. You're listening to Sean on Shadow Nation.
Wow, Shadow Nation. What a great interview. I mean, every once in a while you get somebody on like Barry. What can you say? I mean, Barry is just one of those actors, one of those guys that you connect with, It makes you think, what is in store for us with the new film Crawl? Producers Alejandra Aja, of course, Sam Raimi, Robert Tapert, and Craig J. Flores, they're going to be doing their thing there, and it's got to be a summer blockbuster, all right? You always have those summertime hits. I mean, Jaws, right, was one of them, and I love these types of stories. I know, what was it, a couple years back, what was the big one that came out? I don't know. Every summer there's a new film that comes out. This one promises to be epic. There's not many alligator, you had Lake Placid. And I remember when I was a kid, I was talking to Barry about it a little bit. There was another classic. I think it was called Alligator. Wasn't it? Do you guys remember that? It was this kid had an alligator. They flushed him down the toilets, which was a real thing. Real story, I remember. Back in the 80s, the kids were flushing them down the toilets because you could go to the pet stores and buy a real baby alligator for hardly nothing. And apparently these kids were buying these $5 alligators, and when they started getting too big, a flush down to the old sewer pipes, right? And when they got down there, they survived. So the sewer workers would start going down there and being eaten alive, right? I don't think they were ate alive. I doubt the alligators made it that long down the pipes. But I don't know. If you guys heard anything about that, you need to email me, Shaun, SHAUN, at shadownation.com. Go to our website, shadownation.com, and leave us a comment. Go to Facebook, social media, anywhere, Instagram, ShadowNat Podcast. Leave me a comment. I want to hear about your stories dealing with these albino. That's another thing. They were albino alligators in the sewer. Yeah, lore, you gotta love it. But this is the Rasmussen brothers. They did the screenplay for this. They're going to bring it home. I know this is going to be a blockbuster. I mean, perfect storyline. A family in Florida, and it floods out from hurricane or whatever, and these pack of crazy, wild, looks like zombified alligators are on the prowl. That's like your biggest fear. One of them, right? I always think about that when you see the tsunamis and all the people in these videos on YouTube, and they're running from this wall of water coming in, right? Most people would be thinking, I'm going to drown. I'd be thinking, not only am I going to drown, I know how to swim, but, you know, the current and the waves hitting you so fast. What's in that water? I mean, there was pictures from Katrina when it hit New Orleans with bull sharks or tiger sharks swimming down Bourbon Street. Or maybe not Bourbon Street. I don't remember where it was, but there was some pictures in a hotel when I was out there filming one time that I seen. It was spooky, man. Can you imagine that? All of a sudden you're at the Adidas store, right? You're picking up some shirts, some shorts, buying a pair of Levi Strauss, and all of a sudden a shark's chomping on your butt cheek. So, yeah, that would be a bad day. But I'm excited. Like I said, the Rasmussen brothers, Aja, all these guys are going to do this. They're going to bring it home. And I know I'll be front row. So remember that. July 12th, it's releasing in theaters everywhere across the world, especially across the United States. So you want to get your tickets and be in there really, really early. Okay, so I was looking it up online real quick. And sewer alligator. There's stories everywhere, first off. But the sewer alligator stories date back, I guess, to the 1920s. So this has been going on for a while. Maybe I shouldn't go work in the sewers, huh? Maybe you guys should look for jobs elsewhere besides public servant, like city waterworks or anything. I don't know. But 1920s, 1930s, in most instances, they are part of contemporary legend. In most instances, they're part of legend. They're based upon reports of alligator sightings in rather unorthodox locations. In particular, New York City. Huh? New York City? Yeah, absolutely. This is where the legend goes strong, I guess. Following the reports of sewer alligators in the 1930s, the story has built up over the decades and become more of a contemporary legend. Many have even questioned how accurate the original stories are, and some have even suggested they are fictions created by Teddy May, who was the commissioner of sewer at the time. Interviews with him were the basis of the first published accounts of sewer alligators. However, the story of the sewer gator in New York City is well known, and various versions have been told. Here we go. There has to be some real to this, right? Let's see. Louisiana or Florida to New York City. As late as the middle of the 20th century, souvenir shops in Florida sold, there you go, wasn't even pet stores, guys. Wasn't even the pet store. It was souvenir shops in Florida sold live baby alligators. I told you, in small fish tanks as a novelty. Tourists from New York City would buy baby alligators and try to raise it as a pet. When the alligator grew too large for comfort, the family would proceed to flush the reptile down the toilet. What happens next varies. Here we go with the stories. The most common story is that the alligators survive and reside within the sewer and reproduce, feeding on rats and rubbish, growing to huge sizes and striking fear into sewer workers. All true. I could see that happening, right? They could live off the rats and stuff down in the sewers. I mean, I'm sure there's not a shortage of rats crawling around the dark tunnel sewer system. In Robert Daly's book, The World Beneath the City, came out in 1959, he comments that one night a sewer worker in New York City was shocked to find a large albino alligator swimming towards him. According to May, sewer inspectors first reported seeing alligators in 1935, but neither May nor anyone else believed him. Instead, he set men to watch the sewer walkers to find out how they were obtaining whiskey down in the pipes. They thought they were drunk, the sewer workers. Oh, it is kind of a crappy job. Ah! I'm just saying, no, thanks, sewer workers. We need you. Anyway, persistent reports, however, perhaps including the newspaper item discovered by Coleman, caused May to go down to find out for himself. He found that the reports were true. The beam of his own flashlight had spotlighted alligators whose length, on the average, was about 2 feet. May started an extermination campaign using poison bait, followed by flooding of the side tunnels to flush the beast out into the major arteries where hunters with .22 rifles were waiting. He announced in 1937 that the gators were gone. Reported sightings in 1948 and 66 were not confirmed. However, there is no mention of blind albino alligators and may have suggested the baby alligators were dumped down storm drains rather than flushed down the toilet. So I could see the alligators surviving in Florida or somewhere with a warm climate, right? But like here in the Midwest stuff, there's no way. There's no way. The first chill in the air, I think it's the first frost, right? Or freezing in the waters, it would kill them. It would kill them. But at my job, right? I know what you're saying, Ghostman, but your job's this Hollywood-type podcaster. No. I do this for the love of stuff, for the love of it. But I have to work, unfortunately, too, guys, full-time job. But I was talking to one of the people that come into my place of business quite often, and he deals with reptiles. I mean, everything that freaks me out, right? Tarantulas, scorpions, lizards, whatever. And he also does these, I guess they were dwarf crocodiles or something. Very cool. Needle-like teeth that terrifies me, because if that bit into you, you'd be, ouch. That's all I'm saying. But he was called, apparently, by the police department here in town, in Indiana, to come get a alligator. And it was like 4 foot long, or 3 foot long, and it was in the White River here. Now, if anybody doesn't know the Midwest, like Chicago, Indiana, stuff like that, when wintertime hits, I mean, it gets really stagnant here in the summer, but when wintertime, October, November, December, January, February, when those cold months happen, thank God it would eliminate the threat of the alligators in the water. Could you imagine that? You're just going swimming out in the lake, and all of a sudden, there's an alligator. I mean, you're used to it in the swamps and in the bayous of Louisiana and stuff like that, but not in the Midwest. That's all we need is alligators. Yeah, but there's some truth to that. So I think this is so cool. I remember seeing that in the movie. There's a scene, and I believe it was called Alligator, and this kid's getting ready to jump in the pool, and the alligator's just sitting there, and the kid doesn't see it, and you're like, oh my God, don't jump off the diving board, kid, don't do it. But I don't know what, I think he jumps in, and he's gone, right? The gator chomps him up. But I remember we were on vacation. I must have been like 12 with my folks, and we were down in Florida, and I was the only one. My mom took me down to the hotel pool, right? And that wasn't that always fascinating? As a kid, when we would go to on vacation, I mean, staying at a hotel with a pool was almost as cool as wherever you were going on vacation, Disneyland or whatever. I mean, you were like, oh my God, we got to get to the hotel and get in the pool. And knowing now what I know as an adult and having a child of my own, children, you're so exhausted from traveling when you get to the hotel, you don't want to do nothing. But I remember when I was a kid, first thing, I'd be like, okay, let's get them trunks on, Dad, Mom, hit the pool. And they would take me down there. But I remember that night, Mom took me down to the pool. And I mean, she was sitting up there reading a book or something around the pool. But I was the only one in with the water. I could see the blue light, the light underwater reflecting off of everything. And I was just waiting out in the middle. I swear to God, I could imagine the alligator out there. Anyway, so we did at one point have a problem with alligators in the sewer. At least confirmed in New York City. But I don't know how many places. You would imagine down in New Orleans that would be more of a thing, right? And I'm sure it is. But so there we go. It was not all fictitious. It was not all Hollywoodized. So I'm downstairs, and a lot of you longtime listeners know that I had Mr. William Sanderson, amazing, amazing character actor, came on a couple weeks ago. Came on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about his career and doing the Mayor of Deadwood. He had that epic HBO series that just did a final movie, which breaks my heart. That should still be going, that series, but whatever. Que sera, sera, I guess. But he came on the show. Such an amazing interview I got to do with the guy. I've always loved his work and the history, and I've been reading his book. He sent me a copy of his book, which is Yes, I'm That Guy, The Rough and Tumble Life of a Character Actor by William Sanderson. And I gotta say, I've been hooked on it, right? It's a weekend. I'm sitting here, no shirt on, running around the house. Now I'm no shirt on in the studio. I'm loving it, baby. I'm loving it. This is my sanctuary, by the way, in front of the microphone, talking to you fine folks. And apparently shirtless. I added that today. Ooh, you gotta love summertime. Anyway, I've been reading that book, and I don't get a lot of reading in anymore, except prep for the show and stuff like that. But this book is awesome. He talks about hanging out with Elvis and how he grew up, and he was in the military and the troubles he got into, and he does it in that William Sanderson way where it's funny and sad and up and down, and you feel yourself in the story, you know? Oh, but if you haven't got the book, William Sanderson, Yes, I'm That Guy, The Rough and Tumble Life of a Character Actor. I know you can get it on Amazon. Anywhere books are sold, you need to go and get that today. I'm not lying. It is amazing. And, get your copy today. Oh, I wanted to tell you, since we had Madison Eisman, the amazing Madison Eisman actor Madison Eisman come on this show. Wow, that was another great interview. And, of course, it's from the Conjuring universe. She did Annabelle Comes Home. She played Mary Ellen, the kick-ass babysitter from that film. And it's a great movie. Great movie, by the way. You need to get out and see that right away if you haven't. It really captures that Conjuring feel to it, where the story sells itself. Now, I'm going to say I'm big fan of The Conjuring, the very first one. I like the way that was shot. Old style haunted house feel, where it doesn't take much. Just a creepy, quiet scene where the pictures get thrown off the wall by an invisible force, or that long, quiet pause right before the girl's hair gets pulled and she gets thrown around the room by an unseen force. That, to me, my friends, is horror. That's what it's all about, because that stuff can happen, especially if you're in the world of the paranormal like I have been over the years. I'm much more a watcher of the paranormal, an observer, and I just like to document what I observe. So you guys know, over the years, I've done case studies of hundreds of cases, and I've worked different ones. I grew up in a haunted home, so I knew this stuff existed from a very young age. Talking about Annabelle, everybody knows the story. Ed and Lorraine Warren, amazing demonologists, right? They had their museum in their house. People question them. People question everything. They always should. Skeptics say it's all fake. Believers say it's 100% authentic. And I'm somewhere in between on everything. So, because I know this stuff exists. It's just, how far do you want to, if you're not there to see it, it's hard to believe. But I was going to tell you about some of the cases I worked. Like right here in studio, I have an angel statue with a crucifix. She's been blessed. I have a couple artifacts around the house here. They've all been blessed, but she's from a haunted home. And the story was that she was there was a young girl that passed away, and this statue was on her grave for years. But it was vandalized. Someone broke the wings off and stuff, so the guy that I got it from brought it back to his home when strange things started happening around his home. He started seeing visions of the little girl, what he thought was the little girl, running around his house, and people still go there to this day. So apparently the little girl's still attached to it. But I spoke about her just a couple weeks ago, how she moved. The statue moved by itself. It's very rare that it'll do that, and there's no other reason. I don't think there was any earthquakes here in Indiana, but every once in a while, she's up here on the desk where I broadcast. Every once in a while, you'll see her, she'll move in a direction, like you'll come into the office and she was facing one way and the next day she won't be quite facing that way. I mean, it's nothing drastic. It's not like I walk into the office and I see her flying around, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. So the gentleman asked that I took that statue out of his house when I did an investigation. I said, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't mind having it. It creeped him out. So I brought it into the house, had it blessed, and there she sits, right there. I'm staring at her right now. But the wings are definitely broke off her back, and there's some chip marks in her and stuff like that. And not all of those were allegedly from the vandals when it sat on the young lady's grave. So she moved around. She would fall off shelves and everything to where the guy started putting it on the floor, and he just didn't want it in the house no more. So there it sits. So that stuff's real. And I wanted to tell you about a case that I worked one time. There was a house across from a cemetery. Now, these people would call me out. They had looked me up online, and they found out that I had done this sort of thing. And this was before Extreme Paranormal on A&E, before any of the evil things or any things that I had done publicly. I'd done a couple news stories, but mostly I was stopping at cemeteries on the weekend and doing some EVP and things like that, trying to see, fishing, basically, to see if I could find any kind of evidence or anything to keep the eyebrows up, right? Sometimes I would. Most of the time, I wouldn't. But there was a family, and they called me one time. And I remember it was an old house in a place called Terre Haute. I think it was Terre Haute, Indiana, either that or Brazil. And it was across from a cemetery. And these people lived in this home. Now, before I got out there, they sent me this long email telling me what had happened. And it was the mother, and they had 2 children. And they started to get scared because things would move around the house, especially down in the basement. The wife started reporting how words would be carved out on the walls, she said, in the bathroom and through the house. It would be violent stuff like rotten hell and, dirty words and stuff on the wall. So, when you're sitting at home, you're reviewing these case files before you go out to the place, you're supposed to ask them a series of questions. People aren't always honest on those. Of course, is there drug abuse? Is there this? Is there that? You're trying to find out if people are crazy, or if you're walking into like an ambush with, somebody jumps you and says, "Oh my God, you're the devil," and shoots you or something. Because usually on an investigation, you're staying with these people in their home for 1 to 2 nights trying to record this stuff. So I did a research on the house. I found out that the house across from the cemetery used to serve as a prep building for the bodies. They actually didn't have a funeral home. They would do the embalmings in this home. And they'd prep the bodies, and then across the street, they'd bury them. So I went out there. I had all my stuff, which is real small scale. EMF meters, video cameras, some recorders, things like that. I went out there, and I remember walking in the house, and it had a strange feel. Had a very strange feel to it. But I said hello to the owners, and they said, "Hey, welcome." So I brought in all my stuff, and they took me back, and I said, "Show me around the house." So they took me to the kids' room, and I started seeing, some clothes thrown around and stuff like that, nothing out of place. But the pictures on the walls wouldn't stay on the walls, the lady said. So, of course, I put them back up there, and I wasn't there that long, but they were still on when I went there. It doesn't mean that she was lying. It just means it didn't happen. It's very hard to, investigate something and tell somebody, yep, your house is haunted or it's not haunted. You're telling these people what you think after 6 or 7 or 8 to 12 hours in their home, when these people are there every day playing video games, making love, coming in and out of the home. You can't tell these people. The best you can hope to do is find them or record them or see them trying to trick you, fool you, or you see the actual activity happen for yourself. That's the best you can do. But anyway, the night I was there, the lady first took me back to her bathroom. I said, "Show me, what are you talking about writing on the walls?" So she takes me back to the bathroom, and we walk into the bathroom. I'm expecting these big cuss words like, on the wall and blood and stuff. You see all this stuff in your head. It was actually from the film on the shower glass doors. The film you can get on there if you don't clean your showers. And it had like hell scratched down on it, which anybody could have done. A woman with long fingernails, a guy could have done. But it said hell, 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 and some other dirty words and stuff like that on there. So I took pictures of that, and I went around the house. And I'd say we sat there all day long. And these people had been playing Ouija board and everything else. Now, anybody that listens to the show knows that I'm not a huge believer in demonic possession from use of Ouija boards. I guess anything can breathe life into... I guess anything's on the table. Once you know that the paranormal exists, you can't start saying no to everything else. So yeah, there could be a possibility with a connection between the netherworld and and Ouija boards. But I've always found them to be just cool pieces of cardboard with a piece of plastic or whatever as a planchette. But I people I respect have came on this show and said other things have happened. So who knows? But they got out the Ouija board because I wanted to recreate. I've always had a strong feeling if something's there, much like I did on the television show, Extreme Paranormal, if something's there, show me. I don't want to waste my time. That's what I'm there for. I never understood the investigators that go out and say, don't say this demon's name because he'll come forward, or don't say, knock on the door 3 times because the ghost. So what are you there for? I mean, that's the whole thing, right? You're there to experience this. If you're not ready to experience it, might I suggest you don't do this type of thing? So I'm definitely an experiencer. I want to experience what's going on. And that's what I did. I headed out to their house. So we're all sitting around. I would say it was probably, I don't know. They say that, the witching hour, like the 3 a.m. It's the kind of like a knock in the face to the direct hour of Christ was crucified, 3 p.m. or something like that. And 3 a.m. is supposed to be the witching hour. So the demonic uses that time to, to be in defiance. But it was between 12 and 3. And we were sitting in the front room and had the lights low. Because it is believed. People always ask that, by the way. When ghost hunters go out and stuff like that, why do they lower the lights? Well, the reason I do is because in my studies over the years, I've tried to apply or put some kind of science thought process onto some of this stuff. And you might know by a lot of people's what they've said about hauntings and interactions they've had with ghosts is a lot of them have this etheric, like blue glow to them, which a lot of people believe, I'm one of them, that the same thing, if you walk across the floor, like in the dry fall seasons or dry times of year, and you put your hand on the doorknob, what happens? Electrostatic energy, right? Pop! You zap yourself. Well, that little spark, if you've ever been in a dark room and you've done that, hurts like hell. But you see that little blue spark. And some people believe, I'm one of them, that ghosts produce electrostatic energy, that they use that energy from the atmosphere itself, which it's loaded with, to, I don't know, materialize maybe? Do things like that? So anyway, that's why I like the lights lower, because if there's anything like that, you have a better chance of seeing the bright flash. So, with that said, we were all sitting around, and I seen one of those flashes. They all did, in the hallway of the house. It was a real low blue like flash, and then it would move and flash another time in the hall. I think it must have done that 3 or 4 different times. It wasn't like a glowing body like in the movie The Entity. It wasn't anything like that. It was just little flickers of light that shouldn't have been there. So I'm not saying that was ghostly, or it was definitely weird, right? There was nothing there causing that. But we were all sitting around this, and the lady had dolls. And now you guys know I hate dolls. Freaking hate them. Grew up in a house where Mom collected them, and the house was haunted to boot. So every night I would look out into the dining room. You'd see those glowing eyes in the moonlight from all her creepy dolls. She had like Little House on the Prairie China dolls with those glass eyes. Freaky, man. Freaky. But we were sitting there, and I had the tape recorder going, and I kept asking questions. And I had it set up on my computer. This was before they had that real-time EVP recorder that Gary Galka, we had him on the show a long time ago. He made the real-time EVP recorder. That way, if you ask a question, who's here with us now? You wait a couple seconds for a response. That sometimes you can't hear EVP with audible with your ear, so you have to play it back. And somehow, that's why they call it phenomena, the tape itself or the audio device will pick it up. Stuff that the human ear couldn't hear. But at that time, I didn't have one of those. So I had a little cheap Kmart recorder with actual tape, audio tape inside there, cassette tape. And I had it ran back into my computer to where it would play back. I had it set up somehow, I forget. But I was asking the questions, and the lights dimmed by themselves. Could have been a power surge in the house. I'm not saying anything. But following that up, I was trying to provoke. I was trying to get something out of if there was something in the house. Why do you mess with these people? They have children. Why are you trying to scare them? Are you trying to scare them? So the lights got dim, and then they got brighter again. And I was asking that question, and it played back, and a voice said, "Rotten hell," just like that, just like that. And there was people around. There must have been 6 people around that experienced it. Some people even left the house. They didn't want to be in the house anymore. I got excited. I was stone hard, right? I was good to go. I was ready to jump right in. We had gotten something. And yeah, it said "rotten hell," just like that. I played it back a couple times, and then it was no longer on the tape. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, how convenient. But there was witnesses there, and just as weird as the actual tape picks up stuff that you don't hear, it was weird that it wasn't there no more. It was off the tape, but it happened. And in the time that I was doing that, I turned around, and this lady had dolls all around us in the front room, right? It wasn't like loaded, but there was a doll whose head had turned. I know when I set up all the equipment, the doll, there was nobody behind me, right? And I remember I was packing up all my gear. We had spent the night doing that, and I looked at the dolls, and all the heads were straight like they were, but her head had moved, and I took pictures of the room to document it. So I knew the doll's head was straight. And afterwards, I looked back and I looked at the pictures, and the doll's head had turned. So talking about Annabelle and cursed and haunted objects, I totally believe in that. Of course, my experience with the Dybbuk box, I mean, how it, I got we had Jason Haxton, the old owner of the Dybbuk box. Now, Zach from his Ghost Adventures Museum or whatever, he owns it. He bought it off of him. And, people can go pay their ticket and go see the Dybbuk box behind glass. But before all that happened, I had Jason on the show. I had the Dybbuk box on the show. And things started happening. Go back and listen to the archives. Go look at Evil Things, Season 1, Episode 8. The Dybbuk box. That was my story. And, the audio, I started hearing whispers while I was interviewing him. He couldn't hear my responses. I couldn't hear his. But in between, when I was just talking, it was clear. Knocking on the walls. And then the next day, the book comes in the mail. Next couple of days, and he puts in there, "Hey, thanks, Shaun, for the interview. Whatever. Sorry, let's do it again." And I'm looking at it. It says the Dybbuk box right on the front. And within seconds, huge explosion, lights out, gas leak in the house. We're forced to leave the house in the middle of the night. I find out a lightning bolt struck my car. It burnt only the driver's side seat, blew off the armrest. It should have burnt the entire inside of the car, but it did not. And the gas leak, all this stuff happening at once, and you just have to watch the episode. It was too much not to believe that all that stuff happened. So it was like a greeting card. Hey, this is me, the Dybbuk box. As soon as I put it down, right? The car hits the lightning bolt, strikes the car, tears it up, gas leak in the house. We're forced to evacuate in the middle of the night. The gas company saying the way that happened, every house on the block should have been feeding gas into it, and it wasn't. It was just too much. It was too It was too peculiar to just say, okay, well, stuff happens. So this stuff does happen, and it's a very dangerous thing. But that's my attraction to Annabelle. I think it's really cool. And I like how Madison Eisman was saying on the show that they actually blessed these cursed objects, or they blessed the objects that are made to the replicas of the actual cursed objects on the set because they've had weird things happen. And if you've talked to any demonologist, or I remember there was a preacher at our church that used to do that type of stuff, that can breathe life into these items they talk about. So I thought it was cool. I wanted to bring up that case because some of them stand out. And that was one of them. But anyway, everybody, I want to go ahead and say special thanks to tonight's guest, Barry Pepper. He has July 12th all across the United States. The new film Crawl is due out. That's going to be a popcorn chomping good time, as promised by Mr. Pepper. And I cannot wait for that. And I want to make sure, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can email me at Shaun, SHAUN, at shadownation.com. You can also go to the website at shadownation.com for years of our amazing, epic archives. Make sure you reach out to me, send me an email, just say hi on social media, ShadowNat Podcast on Instagram or just Shadow Nation on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. So with that said, I want to take this opportunity to say special thanks to all our homes, all our sponsors, Stitcher, Smart Radio, Spreaker, the world's listening. How about you? They want to know, so check them out at Spreaker.com. Of course, our good friend Brad at Creative Zombie Studios. Everything you need for the podcasting world. Be the best. Be creative. CreativeZombie.com. And our buddies at the SYL Project. Give, share. Everybody needs some good old-fashioned love. Check them out at the SYLproject.org. From the haunted back roads of America, this has been another exclusive Shadow Nation interview. Don't go changing America. You know I won't. I love you. Good night, everybody.